students first thought it was a prank. In April 1999, two heavily armed students entered Columbine High School in Colorado carrying firearms, explosives, and homemade bombs. Within minutes, classrooms turned into panic zones. Fire alarms echoed through the building while students hid under desks and inside storage rooms, sending desperate calls to emergency services. By the end, 13 victims were dead and more than 20 others injured. The attack lasted under an hour, but its impact lasted decades. Columbine changed how schools approached lockdown drills, armed response, and threat assessment permanently. The first warnings came too late. In April 2007, a student at Virginia Tech carried out one of the deadliest school shootings in modern history. The attack unfolded in two phases over several hours. 32 people were killed and more than 15 injured. Inside Norris Hall, students barricaded doors with desks, while others jumped from windows to escape gunfire. Emergency alerts failed to spread quickly enough across campus. By the time law enforcement secured the building, the scale of the tragedy had already shocked the entire country. The victims were 6 and 7 years old. That detail changed everything. In December 2012, an attacker forced entry into Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut and opened fire within minutes. 20 children and 6 staff members were killed before police fully entered the building. Teachers attempted to shield students with their own bodies while classrooms went silent except for alarms and distant gunfire. News coverage spread globally within hours. Even years later, the event remained one of the most emotionally devastating school shootings in modern history. It began during a school ceremony filled with parents and children. In Beslan, Russia, more than 30 armed attackers stormed school number 1 and took over 1,100 hostages. Many were forced into a packed gymnasium wired with explosives. Temperatures inside rose while food and water disappeared. Families waited outside for 3 days with almost no reliable information. Then explosions erupted. Gunfire followed immediately. Tanks and armed forces moved in as chaos spread across the building. By the end, more than 330 people were dead, including over 180 children. It remains one of the deadliest school-related attacks ever recorded. Students recorded the sound of gunfire on their phones while hiding under desks. In February 2018, an attacker entered Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida near dismissal time. 17 people were killed and another 17 injured in only a few minutes. Smoke alarms filled the hallways while students tried to identify exits through confusion and panic. Videos spread across social media almost instantly, making millions witness the chaos in real time. Survivors later became major public figures in national debates over school security and firearm legislation. The waiting became part of the tragedy itself. In May 2022, an attacker entered Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, targeting connected classrooms filled with children. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed. Outside, desperate parents gathered behind police lines while emergency response timelines later became heavily scrutinized nationwide. Audio recordings, body camera footage, and official reports intensified public outrage. The attack shifted national discussion beyond prevention alone and toward how crisis response failures can increase total casualties during active attacks. The shots came from nearly 300 feet above the ground. In August 1966, a gunman climbed the University of Texas Tower in Austin carrying rifles, ammunition, and supplies before opening fire across the campus below. Students crossing courtyards suddenly became exposed targets with almost nowhere to hide. 16 people were killed and more than 30 injured during the 96-minute attack. Police officers and civilians eventually returned fire from the ground before reaching the tower. The event became one of the first mass shootings broadcast widely across American television. A normal school morning ended in national trauma within minutes. In March 1996, an attacker entered a primary school gymnasium in Dunblane, Scotland, during a class of young children. 16 children and 1 teacher were killed. Survivors described confusion as teachers attempted to protect students while emergency services rushed toward the building. Public grief spread rapidly across the United Kingdom. The political response was immediate and intense. Within years, major firearm restrictions were implemented across Britain following overwhelming public pressure. Students heard gunfire moving through hallways 1 room at a time. In 2002, a former student entered Gutenberg Gymnasium in Erfurt, Germany, armed with multiple firearms and large amounts of ammunition. 16 people were killed, most of them teachers and staff. The attack lasted less than 30 minutes, but shocked Germany deeply because incidents of that scale were extremely rare in the country. Security procedures, mental health discussions, and firearm regulations immediately entered national debate afterward. Children were sitting in classrooms when armed attackers entered the Army Public School in Peshawar, Pakistan. The assault lasted for hours as explosions and gunfire spread through the building. More than 140 people were killed, including at least 132 children. Survivors described classrooms falling silent except for alarms, footsteps, and distant gunshots. Hospitals across the city became overwhelmed with emergency casualties. The attack triggered national mourning and remains one of the deadliest terrorist assaults against students in modern history. The warning signs had already appeared online. Videos, threats, and disturbing posts were uploaded before the attack even began. Then, in November 2007, a student opened fire inside Jokela High School in Finland. 8 people were killed before the attacker later died. Investigators found that digital behavior had signaled growing instability long before the shooting. The case intensified international discussion about online radicalization, digital warning signs, and how threats spread through internet communities before turning into violence. The attack began before the school day even fully started. In Minnesota's Red Lake community, multiple victims were killed before the attacker reached the high school itself. Inside the building, students hid in classrooms while emergency calls flooded dispatch centers. 10 people were killed overall, making it one of the deadliest school shootings on Native American land in U.S. history. The remote location complicated emergency response efforts, increasing the pressure on local law enforcement and medical teams. The fire alarm sounded first. Many students assumed it was another routine drill. Seconds later, panic spread through classrooms and hallways. 10 people were killed during the attack at Santa Fe High School in Texas, while dozens more fled the building under confusion and fear. Survivors later described how difficult it became to distinguish drills from real danger in the opening moments. The attack reinforced a growing reality in schools. Hesitation during uncertainty can become deadly. Schools are often targeted because they represent normal life. UNESCO and United Nations reports document thousands of attacks on schools globally across recent decades, especially in regions affected by terrorism, civil war, and political instability. Bombings, armed raids, kidnappings, and shootings have disrupted education for millions of children worldwide. In some regions, entire generations lost years of schooling because classrooms themselves became dangerous places. The damage extends beyond casualties. Fear reshapes communities long after the violence ends. Students initially believed construction work caused the explosion, then the gunfire started. In 2018, an attacker targeted Kerch Polytechnic College in Crimea using both explosives and firearms. 20 people were killed and more than 60 injured. Surveillance footage later showed students running through smoke-filled corridors while emergency alarms echoed through the building. The combination of explosives, firearms, and confusion slowed evacuation efforts significantly. The attack demonstrated how quickly modern assaults can escalate into mass chaos inside confined environments. Different countries, different schools, same pattern. Most attacks lasted only minutes, but the impact lasted for decades. Security systems changed. Lockdown drills became normal for millions of students worldwide. Surveillance increased. Armed response protocols expanded. And across nearly every case, one detail repeated constantly. Warning signs often existed before the violence began. The problem was not always visibility. It was recognizing the danger early enough to stop it.